because I don't think you want to see him like this. And the room got quiet because half the room knew it's probably a good idea. And the other half of the room was like, there's no way she's listening to you right now. And I responded back to him and I said, with all due respect, sir, I said, I want to see what they did to my husband. And I want to give him a kiss because I didn't get to give him a kiss this morning.
It's quite obvious by now that Erika Kirk seems to have a bit of a flair for the dramatic, but this particular decision to quote back Jackie Kennedy on the day that President Kennedy died, this one led me back to this Jesse Waters interview. And when I rewatched it, I realized her story doesn't add up. There are glaring errors in it that need to be looked at because it shows she can't be telling the truth. Let's get into this. Now, I have been back and forth on Erika. I kind of assumed that her behavior was so odd that she must be working with Candace behind the scenes, that there's no other real explanation for it. But then when I went back to go find that Jackie Kennedy quote, I ended up watching more of this interview, and I realized there's some gaping holes in her story. Like, for example, the fact that she says that she arrived at the hospital when there was still chaos. How could that be if she flew from Arizona and arrived 3 hours later? And that was just one thing. So I want to go through some of the things I found and get your opinion on it.
It's no hidden secret that stuff on campus is heating up. You see people on campus coming on with guns prior to the event that happened with Charlie, the assassination with Charlie. And so I know that, you and I even talked about how I used to say, Charlie, have you ever thought about wearing a vest? He would nod to that and be like, I've looked into it. But he'd always say, if they're going to get me, they're going to get me. He wasn't afraid.
Now, this first thing, in addition to the fact that she's very calmly talking about whether or not her husband was wearing a bulletproof vest at the time of his death, but beyond that, I'm pretty sure, I want to say it was Valhalla VFT, it may have been Paramount Tactical, one of those two. I remember them saying that they had spoken to the person who used to sell bulletproof vests to Charlie and that the account was recently closed. Now, I don't remember if that had been verified, but it's enough to make me think that he had been wearing bulletproof vests. And yet, from what Erika says, he had never been even considering it. So that right there was the first contradiction that kind of made me raise my eyebrows about this. And to be quite honest, had me listening a little bit more carefully to the rest of this interview.
He was like, home needs you. Home needs you. Be home. Come with me on Thursday to the next event we have. And so for him, that night, he was so excited. I mean, he just was like, I can't wait. It's going to be the best. And he got up around 2:45, 3-ish to go into the kitchen to grab a snack. And our daughter had woke up around that same time. We live in a small space, so you can kind of hear when everyone's kind of shuffling around. And so she came to our room, and she stayed in our bed. And he always loved when Gigi slept in our bed because she's, little ones, they like curl up inside of you and like they're just nuzzled in. But you also know that it can be very acrobatic when a 3-year-old is in your bed and somehow their feet end up on your face. So I said, I want you to have a good night's sleep. Go ahead and sleep in her room. And I'll turn the air down so it's nice and cozy in there. And I just want you to get a good night's sleep so you can be amazing tomorrow. And so Gigi and I stayed in our room. And that morning he woke up super early and he came into our bedroom, into the bathroom, because that's where his wedding ring was and his necklace. And he came in and he grabbed that. And then he left. I didn't even get to give him a kiss goodbye.
Aside from the fact that I find it odd that she takes so much time and effort into the story of why they didn't sleep in the same bedroom the night before, I think that's a little off. But beyond that, her story that Charlie got up in the middle of the night and that woke up their daughter because they all live in a small space. Well, from what we know, they live in a $5 million mansion in Arizona. So how is that such a small space that he was able to wake up their daughter? Something about that isn't adding up. And especially given the fact that we have recently heard that they may have sold that space in February. Now, did they sell that house and upgrade into an even bigger mansion with even more space? Or was there something else going on here that perhaps we don't know about yet that caused them to have to sell their $5.25 million mansion in February of 2025? No one's really explained that, but I'd be curious to know whether or not that might have something to do with the financial problems that were going on at TPUSA. And call me crazy, I don't get the sense that Erika Kirk is one that would have downgraded. I mean, that's just me. It could be my perception with the bling and everything. I don't know. I'm just going on record with that.
How did you find out Charlie had been shot?
Was at my mom's doctor's appointment. I have my phone and I see the video come in of him flinging out the hats. And I said, Mom, look, it started. So we saw the hats being flung. I put my phone down and it was on silent, so I had no reason to look back at it. I moved my mom, I went back to grab my phone, and that's when Mikey started calling me. He called me within seconds.
I called Erika. I just remember it rang like 3 or 4 times. I didn't know what to say. Those are the words that will change someone's life forever, and you have to be the one to say it. That was the first time I've ever called her during a campus tour stop.
And so Mikey called me, and I'll never forget him just being like, Charlie's been shot. He's been shot, get the kids. Get security, get the kids, he's been shot. I sprinted out of her treatment center, just collapsed in the middle of the parking lot. Called our security. Yeah.
Now, aside from her defense of Mikey McCoy, which to me is kind of questionable at this point, but think about the words that she said that Mikey said to her. Get the kids, get security, get the kids. So there was some concern, as would make sense, at the time that there was still some sort of danger and that perhaps she should get the kids and get security. And yet, even before they had a suspect in custody, she was already on a plane and on her way to that potentially dangerous place and left her kids alone. Why would you do that? What mother would do that? I mean, there's even later a point in the interview where she says, I'm not afraid. What can they do to me? I have nothing to be afraid of. Well, yeah, you do. You are now the sole parent left to these 2 young children. So you most certainly should be afraid, not for yourself, but for your kids. And that seems to be something that I'm not seeing any concern for the children throughout this story that they tell. Except for right there, when the concern is normal and appropriate, and yet every action they do after that is antithetical to it.
And you wanted to see Charlie immediately and came up. Take us through that.
We landed in Utah, went straight to the hospital. When you walked in, everyone was it was a scene from just a horror movie.
Now, here's where she starts to get into trouble. Now, first and foremost, it is a minimum 1 hour and 45-minute flight from Arizona to Utah. That is assuming it would have taken her 2 hours if the minute she hung up the phone with Mikey McCoy, she got onto a plane and flew straight to Utah. But we all know that that wouldn't have happened. She would have had to do something, talk to the kids, say goodbye to the kids at the very least, especially after she didn't say goodbye to Charlie that morning and this turned out. She would need to go home. She would need to get her flight. Minimum. We are talking 3 hours, and that's if everything went clockwork. Boom, 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 boom. More like 4 hours from the time she got the call until she arrived at the hospital. Why is it still chaos and a scene out of a horror movie 4 hours after they've already pronounced him dead? That doesn't make sense. That would have been 4 hours that everybody in the hospital would have calmed down sufficiently. So there's no way this could be true, what she's saying right now, unless she wasn't in Arizona when it happened.
Everyone is so rattled to the core. Officers, law enforcement, hospital workers, our team, Everyone is just shaken. And we get into the room. One of the law enforcement guys comes in. It's very sweet, but what do you say to someone whose husband just was assassinated so publicly? I said, I've been doing this for 30-some years. He said, I will never tell you that you cannot see your husband. He said, but I, in my professional opinion, think that you should wait to see him once he's at the mortuary. Because I don't think you want to see him like this. The room got quiet because half the room knew it's probably a good idea. And the other half of the room was like, there's no way she's listening to you right now. And I responded back to him and I said, with all due respect, sir, I said, I want to see what they did to my husband. And I want to give him a kiss because I didn't get to give him a kiss this morning.
Now, where do I even begin here? First of all, you're telling me 4 hours later, all of these people, hospital workers, police, law enforcement, everybody is sitting, their staff, her staff, are all sitting there waiting for her to have arrived 4 hours after he's already been pronounced dead? I mean, that right there seems a little unrealistic to me. Then there is the quote that she uses of Jackie Kennedy. Of course, I have to see what they have done to him. Remember that. That's going to come back in later. But yes, that was what Jackie Kennedy said when they said that she needed to change her pink Chanel suit. She said, no, I'm going to wear it so that they know what they have done to him. Meaning so that the people knew what had been done to John F. Kennedy. But then the final little kicker is she's talking about going in and seeing him and he still looks so alive. This is 4 hours after he's dead. He's not going to look alive anymore. And where is he being held? Is he being held in the trauma bay, waiting for her to arrive 4 hours later? 4 hours after he's pronounced dead, the medical examiner should have taken him down to the morgue. They should have been starting the autopsy already. But apparently none of this happened and they all waited. Okay, let's assume getting the president to call and say, well, she's on her way, don't do anything yet. Okay, we'll say, I mean, goodness knows, another good example with the JFK. Despite Texas law saying that JFK needed to have his autopsy in Dallas, they illegally moved his body to Maryland and had the autopsy there. That's what comes with presidential privilege, and I could see that perhaps someone stepped in and said, don't do anything, you're going to wait. Fine, I'll buy that. But Donald Trump cannot make a presidential order to stop nature from taking its course. 2 to 4 hours, the body starts to turn blue. So there's no way she could have arrived 4 hours later and he still looked alive. So it's one or the other. Either this story is a lie, or she was in Utah. It has to be one or the other because the story she's telling can't be true. Right here already, you have too many things that contradict. You can't have two contradictory stories and both of them be true. So either way, she must be lying.
Video was everywhere. How do you process that?
I never saw the video. I never will see it. I never want to see it. There's certain things you see in your life that you can never unsee. There's certain things you see in your life that mark your soul forever. I don't want my husband's public assassination to be something I ever see. I don't want my kids to ever see that. And for people who actually enjoy watching that, which is quite literally sick, what if that was your father? Or your brother or your sister? There's a perspective shift there. We're human. Life is fragile. And there is so much beauty in this world. Why would you waste any portion of your life looking at something so evil?
Well, now this just makes no sense because she just said she wanted to see what they had done to him. Well, the whole point of that was bringing in the Jackie Kennedy Association. That's why she said it. But then she turns around and contradicts that and says, why would she want anyone to see it? Well, you just said you wanted to see it. So why would other people not want to see what they had done to him? And why wouldn't you want other people to see what had been done to him in the same line as Jackie Kennedy. If you're going to go ahead and bring her into it, then you ought to maintain her sentiment. You can't just pick and choose which parts of what she said and then use the exact same quote. It doesn't work that way. So did you want people to see it, or did you not want people to see it? But I want you to keep in mind, she said she has never watched it, because that too is going to come up again.
And the difference between this and previous assassinations in this country is there was no social media. There was no AI. I can tell you how many fake images are out there of all of this. And again, my only request is that just please pray and consider and think about whatever you put online, because it's going to impact his kids in the future.
Well, she says right there that she knows that there are a lot of fake images out there. Well, how does she know? She wasn't there, and she hasn't watched the video, which she clearly said earlier that she didn't watch it and will never watch it. So how does she know that there are fake images out there? Is she watching the fake images but not the real thing? And how would she know if they were fake if she never watched the real thing? So her saying that right after she said she's never seen the video, how can she say that with any credibility? And nobody caught that the story doesn't even come close to adding up? She's just putting out sound bites there, and people are only listening to the sound bites. When you listen to it as a whole, none of it makes sense.
There's other theories swirling around about Charlie's assassination.
Right.
How does that make you feel?
When everything happened, my phone died and became a black hole. I just didn't turn it on for weeks on end. I've intentionally insulated myself because I need to guard my heart, and I need to be there for my kids, and I need to be there for Turning Point. And what I've realized through all of this is that everyone grieves differently. Everyone is trying to figure out, and I don't blame them, how does this happen? How does somebody become so radicalized where they can justify this in their own head? We just lost one of the greatest voices of our generation. Why? How? What's behind it? Like, everyone's trying to process this.
Now, you may disagree, but to me, that was her reference to Candace and Candace grieving in her own way. But what I thought was very interesting in that little clip was she said she turned off her phone for weeks. Weeks? Really? Because you were posting. But beyond that, she also said that she needs to be there for her kids and for Turning Point. Well, really? No, you just need to be there for your kids. You would theoretically have put people in charge of Turning Point to handle that while you are there for your children. I mean, the children seem to be forgotten in all of this, and they're just brought out when she needs to have something to say that she should be saying, when she wants the empathy. But in reality, I mean, like I said, you got up and you left your kids all by themselves and went into a dangerous situation without a second thought. So now you're bringing up the kids? It seems and it feels very inauthentic to me.
Charlie was answering a question about trans violence when he was murdered. Do you think that was a coincidence?
I don't believe in coincidences.
Do you think they've caught your husband's killer?
So, something I'm so grateful for is that we have one of the most incredible teams for this case. I would never wish it upon anybody to have to go through what we are going through. To have seen the autopsy report, to have seen the different evidence portions that have been collected. I trust our team.
Now, of course, she never actually says there that she thinks that Tyler Robinson is in fact the one that did the deed. But of course, she gives herself enough room so that she can backtrack in the future if she has to. That's how I read that. Now, of course, we all know that there are an awful lot of things that she ought to be questioning. And she's trying to say, well, I've seen the autopsy. I've seen the evidence. Yeah, well, how much of that evidence is geo-tracking done by your mom's company? I mean, I don't know about that. That's the rumor. But come on. I mean, if they're talking about geo-tracking the device, I don't believe any of that if it came from the company that her mother is. I won't. That's just me. Now, this video is getting much longer than I had intended already. That always happens to me. But there are a couple more things that I found when I was doing this research that I think are worth pointing out. For one thing, you have Jesse Waters going from, I believe he's in D.C. or New York. He might be in New York. Going from New York to Arizona to do the interview with Erika. And then he also travels with her to Ole Miss in order to be there when she does her first Turning Point event. So Jesse Waters is flying all over the country just for her? I mean, doesn't that seem a little bit like overkill? Really? In a matter of a couple days, he's doing all this for her? I mean, I get maybe flying out to Arizona for her and having that interview there, but to then follow her to Ole Miss, I don't know. That seemed off to me. Maybe he was already speaking there, and so it wasn't like he was going just for the interview. Maybe. But also, here's the second thing. Why is she hugging all these men like this? You've got Jesse Waters, J.D. Vance, President Trump. I mean, this woman has very few boundaries. And there's something about that that's vaguely disturbing. This is not just she's a touchy-feely, friendly person, because she's doing this in a way that is intended for the camera. And it is, all the men that I've seen seem slightly put off by it. I mean, look at their faces. Look at Trump. Look at Jesse. None of them seem comfortable with the way she's doing it. So that tells me either this is being done for the camera and they know that this isn't her normal behavior and so that's why they're uncomfortable, or she just generally makes them uncomfortable with her lack of boundaries. Either way, it doesn't speak well of her. Now, the final thing that I found this, and I think it's worth noting, this is one picture of Charlie and his parents at an event of some sort. It looks like he's a teenager here. But I want you to see the other picture going around. And you will notice his mother is wearing the exact same clothes, and it's got the same green background. So one of these is clearly a fake photo, and I believe it's the one that shows them in mourning. I haven't seen anything that indicates anything close to that other than this one photo. So whoever's doing that, I think that's really trashy and they ought to stop. And that's all I have to say about that. Like I said, I feel bad. I'm kind of rushing through here at the end because there was a lot that I wanted to say and I ended up going over time. But do leave your thoughts down in the comments. Please, if you get an opportunity, do share this. YouTube doesn't really like me, so any sharing you could do, I would really appreciate. I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts down in the comments. What do you think? Do you think Erika is above board? Do you think she's working with Candace? Or do you think she's just a great big actress? You tell me. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you have a great day.